Yeah, I got a little story I'd like to share with you today. Over the years, I've invested in myself many times over by going to national stadium events, and I've heard dozens of great speakers, motivators, inspirators, and trainers. And one of those was a man named Zig Ziglar. I've heard him several times. And he tells this story that a number of years ago, his executive assistant got a phone call from a lady in Birmingham, Alabama. At the end of the conversation, she says to Zig, I believe this woman thinks she's got an impossible problem, but I believe that you can solve that problem with her if you'll just spend a few minutes of time with her. He says, tell her to meet me backstage at my event. I'll get there about 10 minutes early. His schedule was tight, and that's about all the time that he had. So he gets there, he's standing backstage behind the curtain on one side, and she spots him from the other side. And as she's walking across the stage, Zig had never seen that much anger in a human being in his entire life. She almost started crying when she saw him, and she says, Oh, I'm just so glad to see you. I've got this horrible job. I hate it. I hate everything about it. I hate everybody down there. I mean, talk about a negative person. She was it. She says, Can you help me? Now, understand, Zig only had about 10 minutes, so he looked her in the eye, and one thing he had learned a long time ago, just as I have learned over the years, he said to himself, I really don't do counseling, but I talk with a lot of people who do, and I have friends as well in the areas of psychology and psychiatry and the ministry. And I also found out that everybody who comes to you with a problem are not necessarily looking for a solution. I couldn't understand that for a long, long time. Why did they bring your problems to you, and yet they don't really want to solve them? Well, they want to tell you about it and everyone else who will listen to you. And if you foul up the deal and solve their problem, they can't tell you again and again and again. They want the attention that goes with the problem. It goes without saying that every company just about everywhere has at least one kind of an individual like this. They want the attention that goes along with griping and complaining. Well, Ziglar looks at this lady, and it wasn't really mean or unkindly, but he firmly says to her right there, Ma'am, I'm afraid your problem is about to get a lot worse. She says, Well, what do you mean? Ma'am, I believe they're going to fire you. Well, she, as you can imagine, was totally stunned and shocked. He couldn't have stunned her anymore if he had splashed her in the face with a bucket of ice water. She said, Fire me? Why on earth would they fire me? You could tell by the inflection in her voice that she thought they were the bad guys. I'm the good guy. Why don't they fire them and keep me? Have you ever noticed that people who are the problem never recognize that they are in complete denial? They think denial is just a river in Egypt. Well, why would they fire me? Zig said, Ma'am, I don't believe there's a company in America big enough to contain this much poison that you have in one small spot. Have you ever noticed that when somebody's about to lose something that they've been complaining about, whether it's a car or a home or a mate or a job or whatever, when all of a sudden it appears they're going to lose them, it takes on brand new value. She looks at Mr. Ziglar and said, Well, what can I do? He asked, Do you really want to know? She said, Yes, I do. That's the reason I came to see you. I came looking for help, but you sure haven't been any help to me so far. So he said to her, Well, ma'am, I've got an idea, and I will absolutely guarantee you it positively, definitely, absolutely will work if you will just do it. She said, Well, I'll try anything within reason. He told her, Okay, when you get home tonight, all of your household chores are done and complete. It's bedtime. Get off in a room right by yourself. Get a sheet of paper. And at the top of it, write, I like my job because. She interrupts him right there, stops him, and says, That'll be easy. I don't like nothing about that job. Don't like nothing about those people down there. And Zig told her, Well, just as a matter of curiosity, do you work there for benevolent reasons, or do they pay you for working there? She says, Well, I got to confess, they do pay me. Then he asked, You don't like to be paid? Oh, yes, sir, I do like to be paid. Okay, tell you what you do. Open your notebook right now. we'll start out our list of all the things you like about your job. They pay you for working there, and you do like it, don't you? She says, absolutely. But she just stood there. So he said, open your notebook right now, and we'll get busy on the list. Again, she just stood there. Zig finally said, ma'am, let me tell you what my experience in life has been. I know that in 100% of the cases, no exceptions, people who won't take step number one never take step number two. You see, she had come to Zig with an impossible dream. Her dream was that nice Mr. Ziglar was going to solve all of her problems and she would live happily ever after. But friends, I've got good news for you. He couldn't solve her problems. I can't solve your problems, but I will give you some steps that are absolutely, definitely, and positively will work for you as it worked eventually for her. Zig went on to say, well, ma'am, let me tell you something. Unless you're willing to take step number one right now, it's been nice talking to you. She angrily opened her notebook. Before they got through, there were 22 things she liked about her job. Not only did they pay her for working there, they paid her above average. She had a 3-week vacation with pay. She had a retirement program. She was in the profit sharing. She had health insurance, life insurance, and accident insurance. She lived less than 10 minutes from home. She was on the management decisions team. The company sent her to 3 seminars a year, all paid for in full. She had her own private office and parking space. Her list grew to 22 things that she actually liked about her job. So next, Zig said, ma'am, when you get home tonight and everything is finished, get off in a room right by yourself. Close the doors and change one word from I like my job to I love my job. Get in front of that mirror and friends, I cannot say this to you strongly enough. The eyes are the window of the soul. So he told her to look into that mirror at herself with excitement and enthusiasm. I love my job because they pay me more for working there. I love my job because they pay me above average. I love my job because they have a wonderful insurance program. I love my job for every one of those statements. He told her, you're going to sleep better tonight. You'll see that there's something hidden in what I'm saying to you now. And when she says, I like my job, is really saying, I'm grateful for my job. And all of the emotions we can have, according to Hans Saleh, the #1 stress specialist in America at that time, the healthiest of all human emotions is gratitude. Zig said, you go down that list. I love my job. That is a way of gratitude. You'll sleep better the first night. Tomorrow morning when you get up, get back in front of that mirror, and just before you go to work, repeat that process again with excitement and enthusiasm. I love my job because, and take that list with you to work. Because the reality is, you see, you have started to change from a fault finder to a good finder. Let me say this. Some people do really find fault, like there's a reward for it. They really do. Take that list with you and you will be able to add to that list. Absolutely guaranteed. Do this every morning and every night, and we will have an astonishing recovery from this advanced case of stinking thinking. Now, Zig didn't say that to her, but I'm saying it to you. That's exactly what it was. It was an advanced case of stinking thinking. Well, 6 weeks later, Zig was back in Birmingham, Alabama, doing a follow-up sales seminar. Now, the lady was not in sales, but she'd been listening to his tapes he refers to as his automobile university, and she had discovered that everybody sells. Everybody who hears this is selling, whether you're a school teacher, a civil servant worker, a military personnel, an executive secretary, doesn't matter what you do, you sell every day of your life. There she was in a sales seminar, seated on the very front row, now grinning so wide she could have eaten a banana sideways. I'm telling you, you're talking about somebody that was excited. She was turned on. So Ziglar saw her and asked, well, how you doing, ma'am? She grinned even more broadly and said, Mr. Ziglar, I'm doing wonderfully well, and thank you for asking. She said, you cannot believe how much those people down there have changed. Oh my goodness. I've got to stop and tell you right here, you're not going to change anybody else until you change you. Everything really does begin with you. Now, you see, the unfortunate thing is this lady had been raised in a very negative environment. First, her parents told her that she was never going to amount to anything. They said, you know, you're always late and you're always sloppy. Why can't you be like your brother or your sister or whatever? When she got married, her husband continued that same pattern of berating her, and so her self-talk had become completely negative. Everything she said about herself was negative. Oh, you know, like my dad said, I'll never amount to anything. Well, like my husband says, I can't do anything right. But when she started changing the input, then some radical changes took place. Well, let me ask you, how about you today, right here and now? Do you need what I call a brain transplant, a change of scenery up there between your ears, some fresh air and a fresh start, a clean slate, a new sense of hope and peace? I hope this message today inspires you to take action just like that person did. If you'd like to get my